y'all hear me? Loud and clear? Everybody, this is Jeffery Boney. Of course, I'm excited to once again serve as the host of Trending Tuesdays, brought to you by K. Davis Associates, and we're so excited to be here to once again talk about some of the subject matter that matters to all of us, especially now here in this day and time. I want to start off, and we're going to segue as I introduce my guest here shortly to talk about what's going on right now across town at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Of course, we've since our last meeting, we've buried and laid to rest the Congresswoman who represented for nearly 30 years, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and it was a star-studded event. I'm talking about if anybody could have brought all of the people out that were brought out to honor her and acknowledge her. I'm talking about from the Stevie Wonders to former President Bill Clinton, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I'm talking about the Vice President, soon to be, she's the presumptive, let me just say, the presumptive Democratic nominee for President, Kamala Harris, and many, many others from her congressional colleagues, the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Al Sharpton, Benjamin Crump. I mean, so many people who celebrated and acknowledged the life of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. But there is a special selection, I'm gonna call it a selection, that's going on right now by the members of the Harris County Democratic Party. And I wanted to kind of quickly break down the process of what's happening. A lot of people have been confused about what's going on. Let me do this first. Let me go ahead and introduce my guests. And that way, we can have a conversation about this. First and foremost, I want to introduce someone who's been 35 plus years of executive experience. She's been in banking. She's been in community development. She served as the first female president and CEO of Unity National Bank, the only African-American financial institution, banking institution in the state of Texas. And of course, she's also most recently the president and CEO. She's no longer with them, but she was most recently the president and CEO of Liftfund, which is a nonprofit community development financial institution that provides funding and business education to small business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm talking about none other than the Laurie Vignaud. Let's give it up for Laurie Vignaud, everybody. And I want to also introduce someone I've known for many years. I'm talking about someone who is the guru of real estate across the United States. She's currently the president of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is the premier network of black real estate professionals and one of the oldest minority trade associations in the country with over 100 chapters nationwide. She also serves as the CEO of George E. Johnson Development, and under her leadership, the company has procured contracts with major institutions such as Houston Community College System, with the Harris Center of Mental Health, Houston Independent School District, the City of Houston, FDIC, and many others. Let's give it up for the Courtney Johnson Rose, everybody.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here.
All right, so I was just about to get into the conversation about what's happening across the way. You have 88 precinct chairs.
Wow.
Who will be making the decision to replace the Congresswoman on the ballot, just so everyone can know the process and what actually led us and got us to this point. So the Congresswoman won a tough primary, Democratic primary race against her challenger, Amanda Edwards, at the time. She won, and so she was the Democratic nominee that would be going into the November race, election, November the 5th, to face off against the Republican opponent. If there was no Republican opponent, then she would have been automatically once again reelected as the Congresswoman for the 18th Congressional District. However, she does have an opponent, but regardless of the case, there still needed to be a nominee. She passed away on July 19th of this year, and subsequently, they need now to have someone to replace her as the nominee, the Democratic nominee on the November ballot.
Wow.
The same thing happened, if you all can remember, with in 2016 with El Franco Lee. When El Franco Lee, the commissioner for Harris County Precinct 1, passed away on a Sunday unsuspectingly. He had also won the Democratic primary because he was the only person who filed a run. Nobody was brave enough to run against him, crazy enough to run against him. And so he also did not have a Republican opponent. But nonetheless, he was the Democratic nominee. He passed away after the filing deadline, and so he needed to be replaced. And so what ended up happening is all of the precinct chairs for Precinct 1 ended up having to select a replacement, who happened to be now Commissioner of Precinct 1, Rodney Ellis. He was the state senator at the time, so he had to resign from his seat. He had won state senator for precinct. A domino effect, right? A snowball effect. He was Senate District 13, so he had to be replaced. And so it was between Sophronia Thompson and Boris Miles. The precinct chair selected Boris Miles. He had to resign from his seat. And so his district seat had to be replaced now. And so it came down to, ironically, the Congresswoman's daughter. At the time, at the time, it was the Congresswoman's daughter, Erica Lee Carter, and it was Sean Theory. And precinct chairs, well, actually, it went down. It had to go because they had 3 people in that race. I think Larry Blackman was also in that race. He was not one of the top 3 vote getters, so it was Sean Theory, Erica Carter, and so it was close. So Larry Blackman's voters went with Sean Theory. She ended up being the nominee for the November ballot in place of Boris Miles. So now we find ourselves in the same situation, similarly, where the Congresswoman has to be replaced by the precinct chairs. It's 88 of them, y'all. 88 people are going to decide the fate of who's going to represent and replace the Congresswoman in D.C. for 2 years. Okay, so there are several people that are rumored to be front runners, if you will, but there are a lot of people's names in the race. You have Sylvester Turner, former mayor of Houston. You have Amanda Edwards. You have former city councilwoman Amanda Edwards. You have former state representative Jarvis Johnson. You have some small business owners that are in the area. You have a current state representative, a Hispanic, female representative who's running, and quite a few other people. So Sylvester Turner came out with an email statement yesterday saying that he had 30 of the individuals that are already committed to support him. But you need 45. So that means 15 others are still waiting. So what are y'all thoughts on all this stuff and how it's going down?
First, let me say that these are big shoes to fill. And this is such an important decision because it's such big shoes to fill. It's going to be really interesting. I was hoping, not understanding the process, but was hoping that the voters would decide and that it would be more than a 1-week campaign period. I think they did a forum maybe a few nights ago, but you don't really get to understand how these candidates, even though we're familiar with a lot of them, what their platform is for a larger area like a district and different forms of funding and things of that nature that they would have. We haven't seen any of them in this role or a similar role before. So I just hate that it's a 7-day campaign period and the people don't get to decide as a broad audience. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually choose, but it's big shoes to fill and it's a big decision.
I think anyone that tries to fill Sheila's shoes is going to be in for a surprise. I mean, her legacy is beyond words. Everyone knows of her, knew of her, have been impacted by her in some way, shape, or form. I don't, to your point, that's a lot of people in the race.
Yeah.
And although I know a few of them personally, it's going to be hard trying to select one, even though I do have a couple of faves. But, this is going to be a tough race.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, you don't know what decision-making process the precinct chairs have. We're only talking about 88 people.
Yeah.
So, it's not like the broad electorate who, if there's a mandate, the people will let you know if they want you or they don't want you. And in this particular instance, you know, the most recent Democratic primary, you had, the Congresswoman had a challenger,
Yes.
Amanda Edwards, and they overwhelmingly supported to reelect her.
Yes, right.
Although when it came to her running for the mayor's seat, they chose not to go with her. So, you know, the people know, I'm a firm believer that the people know what they want and who they want. And they know who's doing what and who they want to be in these particular these positions. Ironically, you see also that her daughter announced that she was running for the special election that was called by the governor, which he had to do by state law in order to fill her remaining term, which is going to be probably roughly 6 weeks or so, that she'll be, whoever is elected will be serving in that seat. So she announced that she was running. Also, James Dixon, Bishop James Dixon announced prior to her officially announcing that she was running that he was interested, but he said that if she ran, he would back off.
Ceremonially, I think that is phenomenal.
Really, do you know?
I do. I think that it's a special time. It's a short period of time. And I just think that it'll be an historic moment for our community because the Congresswoman's legacy was so strong and we knew what her family meant to her. So as the whole process plays out with who the long-term candidate is, I think that is a great thing to do for that short period of time. So I'm really personally excited that Erica Lee Carter has decided to do that. Very hopeful that comes out positively.
I agree. I think that she's ideal to kind of close out her mom's legacy.
Yes.
You know, all the work that she had been doing for this year, you know, she gets to complete it for her mom on her behalf. So what more for this family? I think it's beautiful.
So you have a lot of people, again, to not confuse the issue. There are going to be two races.
Two different races, yeah.
Two different races for the same seat.
For the same seat.
On the November 5th ballot, and those two will be one for the special election that we're just talking about.
Yes.
And that will not be for the 2-year term.
Correct. It's just for the end of the year.
Right.
I think you're going to need to explain this again.
Yeah, I probably need to explain it back to myself.
It's really something.
It's something that I want to make sure everybody is aware of.
Yes.
When you come to the ballot and you're a Congressional District 18 voter, you'll be voting for several different races, including the presidential race, which we'll talk about a little later.
A big one.
But you'll also be voting for the same seat, but two different races. One for the special election, which is to complete her term, which again, it will be from when you win that election to, I want to say it's January the 3rd, is when that term will conclude. And then you have the person that's going to be selected by the precinct chairs. And I really wish I was there right now, to be honest.
Wow.
I mean, I wish I was here, but I would have loved to have been over there as a fly on the wall to kind of see, because what's going to be interesting is those precinct chairs, those 88 precinct chairs actually have to stand up and they have to state who they're voting for.
This is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
Is anybody recording it that we can go back and
I'm
watch
sure
it?
I'm sure somebody will.
And actually, we need to keep an eye on social media because it may be hot off the
Yeah.
press. I really think that this is a very interesting race. Looking at the candidates, it's kind of like, are they going to choose to go with what we know? Or are they going to choose to go a different direction? Kind of old school versus new school. And the beautiful thing about it, I think we will be okay either way. But it's going to be interesting to see how those votes go. You know, when these seats are created and you get an icon that gets into these seats, literally someone has to retire, which is rare. Or someone has to pass away for it to be able to change hands. So this is a historic moment. And you could pick a candidate that has 20, 30 years longevity, just like Congresswoman had, to run with it. Or you could pick a candidate that says, hey, we're gonna, do this for the next 4 to 5 years and then we'll start again. So it'll be very interesting to see what they decide.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of conversation, to your point. There are people who would like to see former Mayor Turner because they feel like, of course, experience-wise, that he's been there as a state representative, and you know what you're getting. But then you have questions that have arisen about his age and also his health. whether,
Yeah.
that would play a factor, and how long would he actually be able to serve?
Correct.
The Congresswoman was 74
Yeah.
when she passed. He's currently 70.
Yeah.
And so, and he suffered from cancer here recently
Yeah.
and overcame, thankfully. However,
yes.
those questions are in the back of people's minds. And then you have the question of, to your point, about who's actually been in the trenches doing the work. Now,
Correct.
keep in mind, let's not just start with the Congresswoman, Jackson Lee. You had Barbara Jordan.
Yeah.
Yes.
You had Mickey Leland.
This is a historic
You
seat.
got some trendsetters
Yes.
You
that
do.
even paved the way that sat in that seat.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
yes.
you're talking about filling shoes. She filled
You're right
Mickey
about that,
Leland's
Jeff,
shoes
though.
Yeah.
and,
You're right
and,
about
and
that.
Barbara Jordan's shoes, but
Yeah.
Mickey Leland had to fill Barbara Jordan's shoes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you want somebody in a position that's going to be there for a while. The legacy of Sheila obviously expands a long time, but I don't want, this election is like every 2 years for this particular seat, but you don't want somebody getting there and then every few years you're changing them out. You want them to be there.
But do you want someone that's just young and that's going to be there for a while, or do you want somebody that's going to be effective, or that has a track record of advocating for the people?
Well,
Yeah.
this is an argument that we're having on a national level too, so,
Right,
it's kind of
right.
interesting that we're talking about this
And
locally.
It's
you know.
very interesting because
Yeah.
age has been a factor in the national
Yeah.
conversation also too.
Absolutely, yeah.
It has been.
And I don't want to diminish, and again, I love Sylvester, and, I can see him doing this job
I
in
can
his
too.
sleep. I
Yes.
really can. But I don't want to diminish the other candidates that are maybe a little bit younger, ambitious, who are just as committed to the position and probably will.
But how do you know that they're committed?
I don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
what is the litmus
decision.
test?
Do you
Well-
go with what you know,
Exactly.
or do they take a chance?
But that's what I'm asking. What is the litmus test? How do we judge who would be an effective representation for that seat or any seat for that matter?
Yeah.
Well, don't-
Is it just because, they're ambitious, they're young? I know a lot of people who've been ambitious that have dropped the ball tremendously because all they cared about was their own personal
Right.
resume
Right.
and advancement.
But at the same time, you also are looking at individuals in the race who do have a track record
Yes.
that you can compare. Those that have not stepped up to the level that we're looking for, then of course they're going to self-eliminate themselves. But there's a few who have been in the public service
Right.
arena
Yeah.
for a minute. And so I think that it's only fair for them to get the same look
Yeah.
as
But
Sylvester.
what I believe,
Yeah.
and I'm going to come to you here, is that this will be a selection
Yeah,
by the precinct chairs this go-round, but the people will definitely decide
Decide.
after 2 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they will get an opportunity
to make their voice
to make
heard.
their voices heard.
They will.
Although I'm sure everybody wishes that they could right now at this very moment.
Yeah.
But that's just the way, that's the reality of how the political, and a lot of people probably go to the ballots and have voted for precinct chairs and not even know what the hell they was voting for. They was like, man, what is this? They
Now-
look over the precinct
precinct
chairs, they look over
And
the
they
mud
voted everything.
board.
Yes,
If you have
yes.
a mud district or some of the other
Yeah.
various positions that are
Now you
low
see how
on the
important
totem
this
pole,
is.
But that's-
these things are very important.
Elections
That goes-
matter.
All elections.
Exactly, and then,
Elections matter.
Texas politics, Houston's politics are so different from Louisiana, so you have a
Yeah.
different process of how you look at selecting your candidates. But to your point, we really need to be paying attention, to who's being selected, who's being elected, because these positions, are very important.
This is the hard part. I think two things that the precinct chairs have to keep in mind. One, we've only had a week of campaigning. So how do they make that decision?
Yes.
Because you haven't been able to really hear from these candidates in this level. Two is, as we go into all of the momentum of November and could come out positively on the Democratic side, the legislation, the policies, the things that can be passed under a Harris administration is really, really strong. And you want to have a strong congressperson that can take advantage of the moment,
Yes.
that knows what they're doing, that's savvy enough to really move the agenda for Houston and District 18 forward. So you don't really want to play with this
No.
because you're going into a season, hopefully, that a lot of momentum can really happen, and you want somebody that can ride that wave and bring those benefits back to Houston. So it's a very, very important
Yeah.
decision.
Well, I'm glad you brought up something very important, which is this presidential race. And I want to get
Yes.
into you guys' purview, which is
Yeah.
the business sector. You all are experts in business, finance, real estate, et cetera. And I want to get to that because that's very important. But we have a very, very important race.
It's huge.
You know, every election, particularly presidential election, you always hear, this is the election of our lifetime.
Yes.
And you know, you always be like, oh man, that's the most doom and gloom type statement you can have. But I would venture to say this is truly
The election of
the
our
election of our lifetime.
Yeah.
And we have someone who was not on the radar,
We didn't think about it.
didn't think about
A month
it
ago.
being a reality.
Yes.
And I think that even in conversations, people who said to themselves, you know what, there's no way they would
Yeah.
select her as the nominee.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
They already gave us a black one. Now they don't want another black one, especially a woman.
I
'Cause they rejected Hillary, so they damn sure are
Not
going to
gonna do
reject
this, yeah.
a black woman.
Yeah.
And the momentum
Has been
that
unreal.
that the
Overnight.
Democratic
It's
Party,
been
that this
unreal.
particular race has garnered is something that I've not seen since Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so interesting, and this is so crazy because I was invited by the U.S. Black Chamber to the Vice President's home the Thursday before the Sunday that this was announced. And I had the opportunity to meet her. It was my second or third time meeting her. And, you know, I was going to say something about NARAB, but I was with another colleague from NARAB who said that. So when I had a chance to meet her, what just came to my spirit was to say, I am praying for you. I know that there's a lot going on right now because they were talking about Biden dropping out and things of that nature. So what came to my spirit to say to her is that I am praying for you. And she was doing the shaking hands, and she stopped dead in her tracks. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, I appreciate that so much. And she said, keep praying. It's a lot going on. And literally 4 days later, she is up for president of the United States of America.
Wow.
So just mentally, she's still a person, you know, that has to process all of this happening. And it wasn't expected. What I thought would happen was potentially, you know, if she was the vice president, the Biden-Harris ticket got back in, and maybe if something happened that she could be the president. I never thought that she would be the nominee.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is amazing, and the outpour of support has been so astonishing and so surprising, but such a blessing. And I'm just so excited to see America wrap their arms around her, not just the black community, not just women, but it's been an outpour of support from multiple cultures, et cetera. And it's just been a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, Laurie, why do you think she's gotten so much love and support?
You know, she's amazing, and she's talking to us. She's saying everything that we have been saying behind closed doors with each other. She is saying it out in the public. I want to go back to that moment
Yes.
when President Biden made the announcement. I never forget, I was with my daughters, and I was really upset with them because I was constantly promoting why this election is so important. You have
Yeah.
to support this president. You know, we cannot take chances.
Yes.
And remember that Sunday when he made the announcement,
Yes.
my heart kind of dropped.
Yes.
Because I'm like, please, let's not argue over who the candidate is going to be. And when they said Kamala, I have never seen my daughters and their friends get so excited,
Wow.
which was something that got me energized again. It's like, that's what
Yes.
they've been waiting for.
That's what they've been waiting for.
And this woman is beyond ready for
And
this
capable,
position. She's
yes.
been watching the president for the past almost 4 years.
Yes.
She has a resume that is beyond words for anyone to even doubt or question whether or not she's eligible. And as you guys can see, I am definitely a fan. I came
the way
prepared. The minute that she said she was running, I had my friends in California, New Orleans, and Houston. All of us were on the phone talking about, let's get on the calls. We need to
Yes.
support this person because, to your point, Jeff and Courtney, this is a critical election. It's
Critical.
critical for all of us.
Yes.
You know, we cannot take a chance. And so,
I'm sorry, I'm real time having conversations with the people over at Wheeler
What
trying to
happened?
find out.
What
So
did they
as
do?
it stands right now, as they're doing the voting, Amanda Edwards has 4 more votes than all the other candidates at this
Wow.
time as they're going
pushing.
through the voting. So we'll see.
She's been
So-
working.
We'll see.
So going back to this campaign, and she's now selected a vice president, Tim
Yes.
Walz. I think that he's now able to be the bulldog.
Yes.
Don't
And-
you just love him?
Yes.
It's
I
perfect.
love him,
It's perfect.
yes.
It was a very good decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but you know, interestingly, if you've been following the backstory of this, he really wasn't her first choice.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I don't think he was her third choice. It was the governor of Pennsylvania. And then there were conversations, there was a whisper campaign going on behind the scenes against him because, of course, him being pro-Israel
Yeah.
and being Jewish and several other factors. But on paper, when you look at it, he was the perfect choice
Yeah.
to be her running mate. It's like he looked the part. He
Yes.
fit the,
Sounded.
and when you look
Yeah.
at Walz, he doesn't look the part.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't look like the polished, you know, the Bill Clinton-esque type
Yeah.
of a look,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, but he is the person, and he's been received seemingly so well.
He's
The
been received
Democratic
very well.
National Convention is coming up here on the
Next
19th.
week, yeah.
You know, and there's going to be a lot of buzz. And typically, after any convention, whether it's Republican or Democrat, there's a bump for
Yeah.
that particular
Yes,
nominee.
because you get to know them, you get to hear from
Right,
them.
and then, of course, the people that support them, et cetera. So, you know, do you believe that, that this particular race is going to be close? Do you think that it's going to, do you think that, now, surprisingly, last election with, not this past election, but the previous election with former President Trump and Hillary Clinton,
Hillary.
I was surprised, although I probably shouldn't have been, that 54% of white women supported President Trump
Yeah.
over a white woman.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the most interesting and fun thing for me personally, is that black women would have gotten to the White House before white women. But they had an opportunity, and we supported that opportunity. Our community supported that opportunity. They didn't support that opportunity.
Yeah.
But what do you think it was about Hillary that made, knowing who Trump was?
Yes.
Now he's even more exposed now.
And
But
I think a
knowing
lot
who
of
he
people
was
just
then-
didn't know. Yeah,
Laurie.
You know, my thought is, you know, I think back to when her husband was president.
yeah.
And there was a lot of talk behind the scenes about Hillary. What was her intention? She wanted to be president. She wants to be a senator. She wants to be the next elected. I'm not sure how that rubbed people,
Yeah.
you know, and that whole process of her trying to get to that place. I have to admit, I was incredibly proud and excited to think that she was going to break, you know, that glass ceiling for many of us, but, and disappointed, obviously, that Trump was elected. But I think that she had baggage. She had people not as supportive. But I want to go back to a point that you made. We have to remember, black women have been putting these presidents, these Democrats in office.
Consistently.
And so the fact that we have a black woman running for president this time is just so appropriate.
Yes.
You know, and I won't say that I wasn't afraid in the very
Yes.
beginning that, you know, she would be received, but it warms my heart to see how
too.
black women came together, Latinos came together,
Correct.
white men came together, black
Yes.
men. I mean, there's constantly conference calls and people
Yes.
pulling together to rally around her because we know that she's the right person. I don't think that there's a comparison between her and Hillary. I think their paths are totally different. I don't think that
Correct.
she came with the same amount of baggage. She came with a great story and a track record. Not that Hillary didn't, but Hillary had a lot of baggage associated with
Yeah,
her.
and you know,
Yeah,
I was on that call right after it was right after Biden dropped out.
The 40,000 black women.
Well, I was on.
Oh, I was on that one.
I jumped on that call just to see what was going on, but I was on the one right after that was led by Roland Martin and
With the black men, that was beautiful.
The black men,
Yes.
you know, initiative, and we raised some money. I gave some money, and ever since, every day, all day, I get about 8 text messages
Thank you.
and about
You're on
20
the list.
emails asking, "Hey, look, you gave
Yeah.
these last 8 times. Can you give another?"
One more time,
And
one
I'm like,
more
"Just one more. We gonna ask you for $9. You know,
One more
today.
time.
You know, and if you give $9 a day, you may end up getting a free trip to the DNC. I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, I mean, they're definitely working hard.
It's a machine.
Yes.
It's a machine, and it looks seemingly positive.
Yeah.
But I have to
Yeah.
wonder, why wasn't this machine in place for Biden? And I'll just say this, because I have a great deal of respect for this gentleman.
I do too.
So much
Tremendous
respect. And I often was annoyed that we don't give the same level of respect and attention to our elders.
Mm-hmm.
The man comes with experience. He has seen this, he has walked this walk before. He knows
Yeah.
what to do. Granted, him next to Trump, the man's
That
just
was tough.
theater
Yeah.
and chaos. It's hard to bring any sensibility to a conversation when you're dealing with a asshole, excuse me.
Yes.
But I think that I wish, and I'm not ungrateful that we don't have it now. I'm really excited that we do, but I'm disappointed that we didn't have that same amount of energy around him.
Well,
That we
I
were ready
think
to
that-
throw in the towel.
I
Yeah.
believe that there was a lot of hope and
Yeah.
optimism, and after that debate,
Yeah, the debate
I
was
believe
not
that
good.
deflated a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially a lot of our younger
Yeah.
people. There was a lack of excitement, and there was this feeling of hopelessness, like, man, Trump's going to
That
win
was my
again.
daughters, I saw
Yeah.
it, yeah.
What
So
I
it
think
wasn't
is
about a disrespect of our elders. It was just looking at the reality of,
Yeah.
man, this is not looking good.
I was a part of several conversations with younger people that would say, is this the best our country has?
Yeah, yeah.
We're looking at a 78-year-old candidate and an 80-year-old candidate. Is this all that we can do?
Two
All
old
these
white men.
people, this is all that we can bring. So I think the lack of enthusiasm would have been detrimental because I don't think people would have voted. The
Yeah.
other thing that I wonder is President Biden has been tremendous. He has done so much for several communities. And at the end of the day, I wonder when people were calling for his resignation and people, talking so bad about him and the social media and the memes and everything else, I wonder if him and his wife just said, you know what, we've done enough for America.
Yeah.
I'm going to live instead of making another tremendous sacrifice where my every move is watched. No personal freedom. Instead of doing that, you know what? I think I've done enough. And, we're going to bow out gracefully and move on with our lives and enjoy our golden years. I really think at the end of the day, if I was him and Jill, laying around the White House in the bed, I would just say, you know what? I've given all that I can.
Yeah.
He supported
Yeah.
Obama. He was one of the major reasons why Obama got elected. When we look at some of the policies, our first black female Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Our Secretary of HUD, he has done some major things. He fulfilled his promises. And if I was him, I would have just said, you know what?
Yeah.
I have served, and I'm going to go home.
The hell with y'all.
If you calling for my resignation, you know what?
Yeah.
But on the strength of the fact that you are the president of the United States, and you're in the position to potentially allow the reins to be handed over to someone that we know is a liar, a cheater, and I ain't just talking about, I'm talking about cheater as far as business,
Yes.
et cetera. Someone who will look you dead in the face and tell you that the sky's purple,
Yeah.
and expects you to believe it.
Expect you
And
just
get
because
mad
he
if-
said-
because
and
he
get
said
mad
it.
if you don't.
Right, and gets mad if you don't,
Yeah.
and it's completely disrespectful. He's misogynistic, sexist, racist, and has not claimed to know that Project 2025 is a real thing, and I ain't never heard about it. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I mean, all of these things, I think people were looking at this like, man, and cognitively, you have to look at the state of our current president,
Yes.
and he just wasn't there. I mean, he was making a lot of missteps, and he just looked tired and old. And
It was
being
just
old
the
is not a
age
bad
thing.
thing because
It's
we're
just
all
the
going
age
to get
thing.
there. But
Correct.
it's just that,
Yeah.
you gotta, even my kids would be like, dang, Daddy, is there anybody else that can just step in, and just, do we have to vote for him?
Yeah, and
It was almost like, why do you, it's like, man, you forcing me to vote for this dude.
Yeah, and I get it. But there's such I have this sense of loyalty.
Correct.
to people who have done good by us.
Yes.
You know, and granted, you know, he probably was at the tail end of this ride for him. My biggest concern is that I did not want to throw in my towel with him until I knew that there was somebody else. If there was nobody else, I would go to the end of the earth with this man.
Same
because
here.
I know he
Yeah.
has
You know what the
a track
alternative
record.
is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the part that kind of bothered me a little bit, because you had all of this noise and rumbling. And granted, I watched the debate. I was on the edge of my seat. My daughter, we watch all this
Yeah.
stuff together, and they're bothered, they're not excited, they're almost checking out, and I'm thinking, you just can't do it. You can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So
But
do you wish we go back to?
no, hey.
I think our chances
No.
of winning was less.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I just think a lot of our young
It
people
would have
just
been
would have
hard.
not have voted.
They wouldn't have
They would
shown
have
up.
just, they would not have shown up.
But now we have a reason.
Yeah, you know, we have
Got a good
reason.
reason to
We have a
show
good
up.
All right,
reason.
y'all, listen. I'm enjoying this conversation with Dr.
Yes.
Courtney Johnson Rose and Laurie Vignaud. We're going to take a break real quick and bring up the person that is the architect behind this Trending Tuesdays. That's also Ms. Danette Davis, and have her come up and share a few words. We'll take a break and we'll be right back, y'all.
So Amanda's up by 4, huh?
Well, now, I think Sylvester's
You think
up by 1.
He's- when she was running for mayor. But I hate to have to pick between her and Sylvester.
Mic check.
Yeah. But this so these 84 people, do they like each other? You know?
We're in the break. Ooh-wee. I want to thank those guests that were here earlier and that are still coming back. I'm calling this In the Break, right? Okay? And the first thing I want you to do, if you're in this room, I want you to go find this live podcast and hit subscribe. That's the first thing, you know, it matters that you do that. We're doing this, and the whole concept is so that information that we bring to you is relevant, and you guys like it. And as we continue to have you participate in this process, you do need to subscribe, because it's just kind of how that whole thing works, right? Okay, I'm Danette Davis, and we're K Davis Associates as my business, and we're furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And if you notice, you're in the showroom, but we call it the Showroom Plus. And my husband, honestly, Chef Eddie, who has this wonderful meal. You guys won't taste it because you're not here. But if you were, you'd be able to taste some of his wonderful delectables. But we do have some folk that are here with us. We also have K Davis. If you hear KDITC, that's K Davis in the community, because that's exactly where we are. We are right here in Sunnyside, Texas. That's the 5-1, right? 77051, and we're here because we want to be, and on purpose. And one of the things I wanted to do, this guy who I wanted to introduce to you, Pastor Bozen, whose church is directly across the street. And if you're parked here, you probably half of you parked in his parking lot, which is our parking lot.
Right.
Which he's been so gracious since we built this thing years ago, 3-4 years ago. He said, our parking lot is yours. And he's been that kind of neighbor and that kind of friend and that kind of partner. And I just kind of wanted to introduce you to him. Look, he's here. He missed one. This is the 3rd episode. He's missed one, but he's here. I wanted to introduce him to you and let him say a few words. And then there's a couple other people who are in our audience that I wanted you to meet because we appreciate them.
Listen, I'm Pastor Darrell W. Boson, Senior Pastor of the New Hope Church, a.k.a. the 8650, where we're taking Jesus as he is to people as they are. And I am so godly proud of this young lady and her husband for being in the 5-1. And yeah, they have been such a joy. And the moment that they broke ground, I was here. And to see it come to fruition, I am so godly proud. And listen, don't despise humble beginnings. People were like, why is she in the community? Why not? Why is she building it over there? Why not? It brings value and stability to the 5-1, and I love you, and I appreciate you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Look at you. Thank you, Pastor Bose. He is sincere. I want to introduce you to someone else. Now, she was on the panel last week. You see, folk come back. That means so much to me. This is Sharita Tate. And if you guys know anything about social justice or anything about anything that's, for the community and that's really, really, who works really, really hard in the community, that's Sharita. And she came tonight. I didn't know you were coming. So I'm excited that you're here. And I want you just to say a few things to the audience that's new or what have you. You repeat it, and we've got new guests or what have you who will just pillars of the community. But I wanted you to say a little bit about your social justice and your march.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. As she said, my name is Sharita, and I met Kay Davis a little over 4 years ago after my cousin, George Floyd, was murdered. And she's done such tremendous things in support of him and the movement and his legacy, including the statue that's in the park. And so we have developed a relationship, and I have committed myself to work in the community to try to make things different so that his death would not be in vain. So I do have a nonprofit organization I work with, but I also work in tandem with a lot of other organizations. One of the things that we've done when you go through that kind of a loss, you build relationships with other family members who have been impacted by it. And so I find myself all over the country working with other organizations and supporting other families and working together so that we can have change not just on a national level, but in our communities and in our own back door. So I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for her to continue to make sure that she's doing her part along with the organization to help keep his legacy alive. And hey, I'm stuck with her. She stuck with me.
That's right.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny. Linda had this. You guys don't know Linda Ragland. She's not up here right now, but this producer who's working with me, she had this table going. You didn't say Dr. Sharita Tate, so let me fix that. She is Dr. Sharita Tate. What have you? Because we want to give everybody their due. But another thing you didn't mention, Sharita, that we're embarking on, coming up on year 5. You know, if you walk around the facility, guys, please notice that this photographic exhibit, you know, when we did the unveiling, and I want to give due to Rodney Ellis, Commissioner Ellis, who, and at Tom Bass Park, which is where the statue is, and you guys need to go see it. And a lot of people were not able to see it. So, and the person is, now with this camera there poking at us is Vicky Pink, who was there. But we got a lot of great photos, the artist and George and his family that put that medallion, literally, on him. That was not on, it's not on the statue, but the family said that, that belongs. There's pictures, and it's always here in our showroom, but out at Tom Bass Park, it stands there as a photography exhibit that kind of it reminds you of that day, because we don't want to ever forget. But I'm saying that to say, coming up on year 5, with Sharita, over breakfast, when she made that phone call, it's like we have to do something really, really special. So next year, there's a festival that's coming in May that we're working and we're planning on. So I did want to go on and mention that today. So we thank you. And for those folks that are in the audience, we so much appreciate you. Thank you. And we've got a little beverage and a little food, what have you, because we want you to know, you guys are on the inaugural ride. My first group that was here, but this is 3, but we know that it takes a minute for people to realize we're serious about what we're doing. When we say in the community, we care, we want everybody connected, not just on a Houston level, but on a national level, because Houston matters. We're important, aren't we? Yeah, we are. So with that, I'm going to close the break and say thank you again. Thank you. Thank you.
live here with Trending Tuesdays. I'm your host, Jeffery Boney, and I'm here with my special guests for the evening, Ms. Laurie Vignaud and Dr. Courtney Johnson-Rose. And we're going to jump into a conversation, but I want to follow up on something that was stated earlier. Make sure you go to hit the subscribe button on YouTube for Trending Tuesdays. Make sure you not only do that, but share it with all your friends, families, even your foes. They need to listen to and watch Trending Tuesdays as well. We look forward to coming forth with a lot of other meaningful conversation in future weeks, and so we want you to be a part of that. And so go hit the subscribe button today, right now. All right, so jumping back into the conversation, we've talked about politics, and we're talking about the replacement of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and who may very well be the 47th President of the United States. But let's talk about something that I've been following. There's been a lot of buzzwords. There's a gentleman who is called and considered the architect of the Southern strategy. His name was Lee Atwater. He was the political strategist for Richard Nixon. And as part of the Southern strategy, he did an interview one time, and in that interview, he said, you can't use the N-word anymore. He said, you have to use things and phrases like states' rights and busing. These were the things going on at that time. He said, you got to use these because although you can't say the N-word, when you say these words and these phrases, people get it. They understand that you're not saying the N-word, but you are saying it in an indirect way. So you've heard these different phrases like woke, and you've heard CRT, critical race theory.
Yeah.
And there's another one where there's an attack, I call it an attack, on many of the institutions that were created to create fairness, balance, equality in various industries, and whether it be corporate America or in the business sector or just in overall public services. And that's, affirmative action as well as many other policies and laws that have been put in place to get rid of things like Jim Crow, the black codes, and things of that nature that negatively impacted black people, mostly. And so now there's this DEI thing, this DEI attack against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so many entities, whether they be universities, colleges, on various campuses and state campuses and private institutions, many businesses, many public sector agencies implemented DEI programs to try to bridge the gap, to try to help to deal with some of the unfairness, historical unfairness that has taken place. So many of these DEI programs, if not all, across the United States are under attack, especially right here in Texas. So I know that you're someone who's kind of been following this and keenly aware. It's sickening to see that many of the things that were put in place to try to protect those that were truly being discriminated against are now being used in reverse to claim reverse discrimination because of what they feel is a distinct advantage for people of color.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this conversation because I kind of reflect back to when I was the president and CEO of Unity National Bank, and we were just talking about George Floyd when George was murdered, and then we went through the pandemic, and that's when all of this disparities became to come to light. In crime, we're targeted, and murdered just for being black or stopped for being black. In the education system, when you're accessing capital, in healthcare, DEI, I think in all the programs, DEI became really relevant. It's like 2020, we're talking about this because you can see that there's not an equal playing field here. And so programs were being created, and we were trying to help fill those gaps, not only getting people through the pandemic, but also setting up programs that were going to actually be able to help small businesses and those in other industries to kind of help fill the gap where blacks and browns were actually being ignored or not addressed. Fast forward to my first week on the job as the CEO of Liftfund, and I'm handed a subpoena where we're being sued by a group of white men from Wisconsin who formed a nonprofit and thought that after the Supreme Court ruled against affordable action, for affirmative action, that now it's opened up the door for us to be looking at all of those other programs that actually that's giving credit or providing a leg up for those who have often,
Been
missed and underserved. And of course, I'm not disclosing anything that you can't go on Google and read, but in the Liftfund lawsuit, Liftfund had a partnership with Bexar County. Bexar County had set aside money during the pandemic to help minority businesses, but it was Black businesses, brown businesses, veterans, women-owned businesses, and because they were getting extra points to qualify and to be eligible for the grant, this group came back and sued because as a white man, a white company, he wasn't given the extra points. So it just became like this snowball effect, and I'm talking to my colleagues in the nonprofit business, and I'm talking to the corporations that typically give us funding, and everybody's kind of like sitting on their hands trying to figure out now what's going to happen. Now, the case with Liftfund has been dismissed, but if you look at it, you've got Fearless Fund, program created to serve black women businesses with Black money, and it stopped. They can't do anything with it. The Minority Business Development Agency, they were shut down in reference to how they can identify the business that they're going to be supporting. They basically lost that lawsuit. There's another one in Massachusetts, a capital fund, that has paused the program because they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the lawsuit. And this is just 4 that I'm familiar with, but there's so many more out there that, are being targeted because their program has been designed to fill a gap. But now you're being penalized because this group then figured out that the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 198, that was designed to eliminate discriminatory practices for Blacks and browns are now being used against us. They just flipped the table. And I just think it's crazy. You look at Texas and you've got the universities and stuff can no longer have DEI programs. You have somebody insinuating that our soon-to-be president of the United States, Madam Kamala Harris, is a DEI. It's ridiculous how they're using this, and I have to admit it's a bit of a rub for me because, we've been in this industry for a minute, working in the communities, trying to create a level playing field. Since when did we hit a place where there's fairness? There's still so many gaps. We have not overcome, the disparities that exist in our society, and for a group to now be threatening, and that's how they're winning. If you're threatened, everybody puts on the brakes. They want to wait and see. But in the meantime, you're impacting the organizations, the businesses, the programs that have been designed to help us. And what they're targeting is trying to get the federal government, all of the funds that come out of the federal government, the Harvey money, the pandemic funds, all of those grants that are actually, put forth to kind of help us, they're trying to figure out how do you stop having those funds go into the hands of minorities. And don't be food, they're looking at LMI communities, because if you're looking at LMI communities and those are Black and brown, guess what? Now you've still hit that target. It's still a problem.
What I find interesting, and it baffles me how people, and I just attribute it to a lack of just pure ignorance from people. Ignorance can change, stupidity can't.
Yeah.
But people who are ignorant, once they get the knowledge and information, if they're willing to accept it as fact, can understand. But what baffles me is how people say, I'm just, my vote doesn't count, or I'm not voting.
Yeah.
And they have this, they're disillusioned because they don't understand that whether you choose to vote or not, whoever is put in office are going to make rules and laws and public policy that is going to impact you one way or the other, whether it's you going to, if you got a speeding ticket,
That's right.
if you have to go to divorce court, business court, whatever it is, if you're trying to get custody of your children, I'm talking about judges, and then of course, you have individuals that work for many of these agencies, Health and Human Services and HUD, and you're trying to get housing, and having a challenge getting a loan, and so you have these individuals who are in place that are seeking to try to help minorities, help black people,
Yes.
but yet you don't want to vote because you don't feel like your vote counts, or you don't like how they look, or, you know, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, they too old,
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, I mean, it could be a variety of reasons as
Yeah.
to, or excuses, I call them, that people make as to why they choose not to vote. But I keep reminding people, it doesn't matter whether your non-vote is a vote.
It's a vote.
Because you're choosing to accept whoever
Yeah.
is voted into office.
Silence says a lot.
Yes.
You know, silence goes a long way. And, you know, the other thing that we're looking at, too, you know, you're looking at corporations. You know, what's happening to those jobs? I was in corporate America. I know that it helped, you know, being able to be in a position where, you know, I was able to get promoted because there wasn't a lot of people that looked at like me that was at the table or that was at that level. You know, you're not having the same people being selected to join boards. You know, there was a time when, you know, that diversity, equity, and inclusion meant a lot. You know, diversity of thought, including a conversation. You know, you're leaving money on the table when you take us out the room anyway. You know, so it's like it falls on so many different levels of our life that people are not necessarily paying attention to, or maybe because it's not impacting you today, guess what? It's going to impact your kids, your grandkids, and I know I have grandsons now, and I'm thinking about these young black men that's going to grow up. I want them to be able to have an opportunity to be a part of society and not have somebody telling them, well, you don't need that, you know, or, you know, your black job, you know, this is where you're going to be, you know, this is, you're going to, you know, this is the job for a black man. You know, I just don't, I'm as you can tell,
Yeah.
I get a little excited about this because I don't think enough people are paying attention and talking about it.
Yeah, back in the day, our black job, which was unpaid,
Thank you.
was picking cotton and various other things that helped improve the wealth condition of those that did not look like us, namely white folks in this country. And sadly, you know, we have a lot of people, man, again, that just don't understand. Think about historically. You think about the Ku Klux Klan and why they were formed. They just weren't formed to just terrorize black people just because they were black. They were formed because black people during Reconstruction gained so much during Reconstruction. They were politicians at the state, federal, county level. They also had black entrepreneurship.
That's right.
You know, they had black jobs for real. They were
starting banks.
They started banks. They had land.
Yes, they
They were
professionals.
Yeah, they were growing and they were voting.
Yes, they were.
They were not only voting, they was holding political positions. And when you hold those political positions, guess what? You can influence public policy.
It's going right back to where we are right now. Think about it. I started reading the book Project 1619, and I literally had to stop when I got to the Jim Crow era. And I just started crying because it was like it became so obvious to me we're going back into that place.
Yes,
You know, we
sadly.
talk about, you know,
God forbid.
you know, we've come a long way. I mean, you look at minorities in these positions right now, you know, and who's trying to change the landscape on us and take away some of those? I mean, I need to go back and make sure that you haven't taken me off the voting rolls. You know, I need to make sure you didn't change my precinct or where I'm supposed to go. You make all of these decisions about what kind of identification I need to have. My mom talks about, you know, in the 1960s and 50s when, you know, they were trying to register to vote or they wanted to vote and they were turned away. They literally, during her time, had to figure out how many jelly beans was in a jar. I mean, we are the majority. I'm so glad I'm unemployed because I can say anything I want, right?
That's a good one.
You know?
Don't lose out on one of them black jobs.
I'm looking for my black job. You know, but the point is that, you know, we can't be naive to think, to your point, that our vote doesn't count because the more we stay invisible and the more we stay silent, other people are working behind the scenes. As we know with this election, trying to put people in place in Georgia, you know, this man's talking about, oh, you don't need to vote, you know, as though he's already got it locked down. They have gotten so sophisticated in finding ways to keep us out of the room, away from the conversation, in our, you know, we're so busy hustling, trying to make a living, we're not paying attention to what these people are doing. So the politics is critical, paying attention to this election, because it impacts every element of our life.
And a lot of that stuff is going to also trickle down to home ownership.
Thank you.
Courtney, I mean, you know, we're talking about DEI and how many, because see, it's always you throw something against the wall hoping it sticks.
For
so
sure.
they start with the colleges and universities.
Yes, see if that
Then they
sticks.
go
Yes.
to the private enterprises who are
Yes.
trying to follow suit and saying, you know what, no more DEI programs in the state. Any state institutions. So
Correct,
it's,
correct.
any of the state, programs. And so then it's going to go before you know it, and it's almost always almost there to the goals that are established for some of these business
Correct.
programs
That's right.
that have been established. They're going to
Take
call
that away.
those unconstitutional.
Absolutely. Think about it. If these people are successful with getting the federal government to no longer allocate through HUD and through the Small Business Division funds to help first-time home buyers or to
Yes.
revitalize low-income communities or to help small businesses, then what does that leave us?
Where does that leave us? Yeah. The thing that's so interesting about this is because when you look at the policies, redlining, systematic racism, it was law. It was intentional.
Yes, it was.
It was systematic. It was policy. And to say that
Policy created by who? By people that were elected.
the people that were elected. But when you look at the effects of that, and you say in 50 years, 60 years that this is over, it is not over.
It's not.
If you all will indulge me, I have a story that really depicts on the home ownership level of two different families, and it really shows what happened. So this is a true story in Seattle, Washington. Two families in 1976. Reason why this is important is because 1976 was the last year in Seattle, Washington, that redlining was legal. You had a white family, you had a black family. Both families were getting married, the couples trying to buy a home. Black family could not buy a home because of redlining, which was legal. So they could not get a loan legally to buy a home. White family was able to purchase the home. White family bought the home, 1976, went on to have a couple of children. Children grew up, time for the children to go to college. Well, guess what? They have equity in their home. So what do? They pull out a home equity loan and they pay for their children to go to college. No student loan debts for their kids. Okay, the kids graduate, what most couples do, they downsize. So now the house is almost paid off. So they downsize, take all of that equity, they go buy a new high-rise condo downtown. That's what they do. No maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. And they still have money left over to now have a nice retirement nest egg. Now their son comes along and says that he's gonna get married. They say, great, well, we're gonna give you a 20% down payment to help you buy your first home from that nest egg that they had from the house. The daughter says she's gonna get married. They say, great, well, we're gonna pay for the wedding, you're gonna have a wonderful experience. So now from that one house, all those things have happened. They've been able to send kids to college without student loan debt. They've been able to give their son a down payment. They've been able to pay for their daughter's wedding. Let's look at the black family. Black family wasn't able to buy the home in 1976 because of redlining, which was legal. So the black family could not buy a home. Redlining was then outlawed. About 10 years later, they were able to finally achieve the dream of home ownership. But guess what? Real estate goes up and up and up. So for the same house that they would have bought in 1976, they had to pay $80,000 more for that same house. Same house. But 10 years later, guess how much more it costs? Time for their kids to go to college. Well, guess what? They paid $80,000 more for the house, and they haven't owned the house for as long. So guess what? They don't have enough equity to pull money out of their house for their kids to go to college. So both their kids go to college, but both their kids go to college with student loan debt. So their kids graduate from college, but they graduate with this debt. So now they have to make the decision, do we downsize or do we try to pay off this house? Well, now they look at the values, they look at how much equity they have. So they decide that they don't have enough money to sell this house and buy something new. So they decide that they're gonna retire in their home. But now they're retiring in a home that they're still paying off. They're retiring in a home that's 30 plus years old. So they have all of the energy efficiency issues. They have foundation repairs. It needs a new roof. So they spend their retirement years fixing up this old house because they don't have enough money to go get a new house. Time for their son to get married. Well, guess what? We're still trying to pay this house off. We need a new roof. We need new windows to make it energy efficient. So their son doesn't get a down payment for the house. Plus, he has student loan debt, so it's even harder for him to get a house. The daughter gets married. They say, daughter, we don't have any resources to help you get married. So now the daughter gets into debt to try to have a nice wedding. All because of the 1976 house. So you can't tell me that we don't still need DEI policies, because the difference in wealth between these two families is $30,000 of wealth for the black family and $480,000 of wealth for the white family. But it started with that house in 1976. A head start beats fast running every time. So this head start that they got, we can't just say, oh, we don't need DEI anymore. Oh, we don't need policies anymore, because this head start was so significant that we still see the effects of it. So that example just shows you how we're not lazy. We're not incompetent. It's a head start that they had, and it was policy. It was laws that put us in this position, and it has to be policy and laws that gets us out of this. It's just not going to automatically happen.
No. Well, I challenge everybody to let's flip it. Yes. You know, I think that many times, you know, the powers that be and those that don't look like us try to take something that is a positive for us, such as DEI, and try to make it like a dirty word or a dirty phrase.
A giveaway.
Like with a
giveaway.
Like welfare. In essence, like it's, you know, although the majority of people on welfare in the United States are white, but nonetheless, I was going to say that with the Affordable Care Act, what did they start calling it? Obamacare. To try to make it out to be a negative. Now everybody was like, give me that Obamacare. Because, you know, he embraced it and turned it into a positive. So we need to, instead of, you know, making DEI like a dirty word, you know, like, you know, the vice president is a DEI candidate, or some, you know, all of these people that, you know, we need to just, you know, instead of just simply saying diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to say definitely earned it.
And you know,
definitely earned it.
And think about it. When I was
that.
doing affordable housing with you back in the day, you know, that we know that's generational wealth. What are we passing on to our children? You know, all of the home buyer programs that we have been doing has been about, that's the fastest way for our families to gain wealth. And yet we're still behind the curve. You know, and you know, I don't know how to articulate this in a way that we stop pretending like it's bad to be a byproduct of having an opportunity to take advantage of affirmative action and DEI programs. I'm very proud that I have been in a position where I've been able to take advantage of it, but at the rate we're going, my kids, my grandkids will not have the same opportunities because of these people who are coming back saying, oh, you know, it's been 300 years now, you know, or 200 years now. Y'all should be fine. No, we're not fine. The laws, everything has been skewed against us at every beck and call. Every time we try to make progress, somebody tries to take it away, and they're trying to do it now, which is why this election is so damn important.
Yes, it is. And I want to ask you, since we're talking about, and I'm so glad you shared that story, that comparative analysis of what happened with those two families. Generational wealth is important. Both of you all, myself included, I you know, all have financial services and or mortgage backgrounds, and with that, generational wealth is important. I know one of the main ways in which you can build generational wealth is home ownership. But what other ways do you strongly suggest avoiding GoFundMe accounts and various other things to bury our families and also to grow generational wealth? When my father passed, unfortunately, at the age of 59, he had a stroke, and I didn't know, because he was a prideful guy, I didn't know he didn't have health insurance, nor did he have life insurance. So I ended up having to pay for my father's funeral and whatnot out of my own pocket as a young 30-some-odd-year-old black man. I mean, I was happy to do it, but I shouldn't have had to do it.
Correct.
But again, you know, I had no idea. Now, when he passed, little did I know that a little less than 2 years later, my mom would pass away at the age of 57.
It was so
But
young.
prior to doing so, I talked to her about her status. You know,
Correct.
well, where are
Yes.
you at on your
Yes.
insurance and your health insurance, your life insurance, your investments, and all that stuff. And she sat with me
Yes,
and
that's
allowed
good.
me to talk through it with her.
That's great.
And so when she passed away, I didn't have to do the same thing with her.
Yes.
And she left me something.
Yes.
And I've had conversations being a former a banker. I literally had a conversation, y'all, with a black mother, and I was talking to her about life insurance. And I was like, hey, you can get life insurance, pay $20 a month, you know what I'm saying? And it'll take care of this, that, and the third. And she was like, life insurance? I don't want life insurance. If I can't take advantage of it while I'm here, then I don't want nobody else to have it when I die. And I was like, wow, really?
That's tough.
But you know, in reality, that's the way a lot of people think. A lot of people have that mindset that, you know what, if I can't benefit from it myself right now, then I don't want to pay money towards something that I can't benefit from. Not understanding that
Yeah.
when you're gone, many of your assets, your debts are going to pass on to your,
Yeah.
But it's
you
a
know,
tool.
descendants.
It's a tool to build wealth. I had the wonderful opportunity a couple of weeks ago through a conference, our NARAB conference, to interview Master P. Master P is about 200 million short of being a billionaire with the products and wrap snacks and other things that he's done. And how Master P started was his grandfather passed away and left him a $10,000 life insurance policy. And that's how he started. No Limit Records was with that $10,000 from his grandfather and has built that to almost $1 billion. So you don't know what you could do for your family. I mean, life insurance is a huge wealth builder in our community that we don't benefit from. In other communities and other cultures, when someone passes on, they leave that wealth for their family that they can start a business with, that they have emergency funds, that they can send kids to college with. And it's one of the cheapest things that you can buy that we just don't take advantage of. That's a big one in our community. Entrepreneurship is a way for us to close the wealth gap because your income potential is unlimited when you're an entrepreneur versus when you're working for wages. And then homeownership is another way that we can close the actual gap. But insurance, it's a big one. And one last thing I'll mention that we are struggling with our community, and that's passing along real estate properly. We are struggling with heirs property. We're losing millions of dollars because our grandparents had this home that they fought for with a fourth grade education, fought against redlining and everything else, and now it's passed along 2 generations, and the grandchildren and cousins are fighting over it, and no one wants to pay the taxes and take care of this property and take ownership of it. But it's wealth. And we're losing it in our communities because we're too busy fighting over she's still living there, she should pay this and that. But it's wealth, and you had people that had 4th grade educations that were able to fight through all of that, no education, to get this home, and we can't even figure out how to pass it along with our families.
it happens more often than not. It happens in my family. So,
Yes.
I mean, I'm a living witness.
Yes.
You know, when they say, can you get a witness, I'm the first one to raise my hand high.
We're
This
losing
is
wealth.
so unfortunate because often, you know, and I used to talk about this back in the day, we need to understand the value of the dollar.
Yes.
We need to be able to talk about how these tools are going to benefit us. You talk about life insurance policies. White people have been passing down life insurance policies forever to their heirs.
Tax-free.
Yep.
Successions, wills, you know, understanding that we should not be losing these properties. This is how we build wealth. This is how we pass it on generation to generation. You know, how we spend our money, how do we invest our money, is just too doggone important. And I know that we have workshops and stuff going on all the time. But how do we make sure that we're able to communicate this in a way that people will receive it and
Yeah.
see it. It's not complicated. You know, there's a way to do this, there's baby
Yes.
steps, and the sooner you start, the better you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but we're losing too much ground. And if we
Yes.
allow people to take away programs that have been designed to help give us this
You couple
leg,
that with this.
you're gonna have 30 years
Yes,
behind the
yes,
curve
that
again.
we can lose, that we can
Yes.
lose.
All right,
Yes.
so as we close, and this has been such a meaningful and rewarding conversation, access to capital and resources.
Yeah.
You know, as it relates to affordable housing or housing in general, and as it relates
Small
to small
businesses.
businesses and
Yeah.
individuals seeking to grow. And I have some official results from Wheeler Avenue, by the way.
I can't
that
wait
I'm
to
gonna-
Oh, I
hear.
can't
that-
wait.
that- that-
Oh, my
that-
gosh.
that we're gonna drum roll,
Okay.
and the
Are we gonna be
results.
surprised?
The results may shock you.
Wow,
but,
interesting.
well, we'll see. You know, we'll see.
Interesting.
So, access to capital.
You know, I'll begin by talking about small business, so just since I've been in that lane for the last couple of years. There's so many ways to access capital for our small businesses, and a lot of times we talk about the banks, but sometimes we forget about the CDFIs that are out there, those
That's
community
huge.
development financial institutions that have millions of dollars, and they could underwrite the small business loans and provide leverage and leeway and take better risks than
Yes.
sometimes some of the banks.
Yes.
And there are for-profit CDFIs, there's nonprofit
Nonprofits.
CDFIs, there's some banks that are CDFIs. So I want to make sure that as we're talking to our small businesses, don't think that because I can't go to the bank today to access my capital,
Yes.
that I'm doomed.
Yes.
There are other resources out there, you know, so
I love that.
just take advantage of
Take
it. And I'm
advantage
more
of
than
that.
happy to share a list of names of CDFIs
We'll
here
go
in
right
the
ahead
state.
quickly.
Well, you know, besides Liftfund, which is where I came from, that was a nonprofit CDFI. They cover the whole state of Texas, and of course, they're right here in Houston. But you have the Texas Mezzanine, you have People Fund, you have True Fund. I'm always going to promote my Unity National Bank and my Liberty Bank and Trust, my two
Yes.
Black minority bank institutions, you know, who are very engaged and working very closely. I also offer Amegy Bank has a new product that they have designed to help small businesses. You know, so there's a number of organizations, not only locally but nationally. So, you know, look them up. You know, look up CDFIs, look up the banks, those programs that are really focusing on helping small businesses.
And I had to, before we go into the housing, I used to serve on the board of People Fund for about 10 years. And I also had a lot of dealings here in Houston area
Yep.
with Houston Minority Development, Inc., with Marlon Mitchell and
Yes,
his group.
Marlon,
CDFI.
yes.
And
Thank
so
you.
there are a lot of institutions that are out there locally, statewide, and even across the United States that can help.
Definitely
Thank
so.
you.
I want to add to that because we recently started a program with NARAB, with Liberty Bank, which is a black-owned bank out of Louisiana area, where we were doing lightning loans for our member businesses that are black-owned businesses. And these loans were $30,000, $50,000. But when you're a small business owner, that can be all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
So access to capital, I would say, you know, think about it in a smaller way to start. You know, 10,000, 20,000, what can you do? Be a good steward over that and keep on building. I also like CDFIs. I also like smaller regional banks
Yes.
where you can build a relationship with. A lot of times we'll bank with the big boys because it's easy. You have the app on your phone. It's one on every corner. But when it comes to giving you a loan and developing a relationship, it's hard to do that. But your smaller regional banks give you that opportunity. In terms of home ownership, there's a lot of opportunities out there. I think that getting a mortgage is one of the easiest loans to actually get. One of the easiest loans to actually get. There's so many different types of mortgage products. And about 4 to 5 years ago, special purpose credit programs were introduced. And these are programs that are designed to help first-time homebuyers. I'll give one example. BMO is a bank that has a program. They give special interest rate down payment assistance if you graduated from an HBCU. So if you graduate from Prairie View, graduate from Texas Southern University, you qualify automatically for this program. You show
What's that
up.
first one you said?
Texas Southern University, Prairie View.
I thought you said
et
Texas
cetera,
Southern. I just
et
wanted to make sure I heard you.
I live
I
with a
heard you
TSU
correctly.
grad, so I always lead
Thought I heard you
with,
correctly. I just
with
wanted to-
Texas Southern. But that's a big thing, but they were able to do that through a special purpose credit program through Fannie and Freddie. So that's really, really critical. There's programs if you're going to go into certain zip codes, so people that want to come back home, come back to 77051. There's opportunities that if you want to come back to 51, that you can get special programs through these banks. So again, homeownership is very achievable, and it's one of the lowest cost loans, lowest interest loans that you can get. So I always tell people to leverage and take advantage of it because mortgage products are one of the most readily available out there.
And I'll add that there's also grant programs that can go
Yes.
along with that,
Yes.
so the Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas, Freddie and Fannie. I mean,
Yes.
there's HUD, there's a lot of
Lot
different
of
programs out
opportunities.
there that can actually be leveraged with your mortgage loan to make
Yeah,
it affordable.
teacher programs, first
Thank
responder
you.
programs. It's
Yes.
just so much for you to buy a house. There's no reason why anybody that wants a house should not be able to get a house.
And I'll just add in closing that even on the small business side, I understand that there's some grant programs out there right now for small businesses.
Yes, I just had a girlfriend today get $10,000 from Comcast. Comcast Rise
Yeah.
gave results today. Mayor Turner's Houston Equity Fund.
Yes.
One of our tenants at the Community Collective got $100,000 from Mayor Turner's Houston Equity
That's
Fund.
right.
That's huge for a small business.
Absolutely. Ladies, I thoroughly appreciate you all for being my guest on
Yeah.
Trending
It was our
Tuesdays.
pleasure.
I
Thank
think,
you. It was
I think we may have had a question from the audience.
We do.
Okay, real
We
quick.
do. I've got a couple people. Gee whiz. Now, we didn't say that Courtney, now I'm not in front of the camera, but Courtney and that group that bought Power Center, I mean,
Yes.
they walk the walk and talk the talk, or what have you, and do the investments. But we did have two questions. Pastor, we got a camera on you now.
Okay, listen, I have a question for the panel. This is something I experienced, especially after Lady Kamala threw her hat in the ring, and there you go. It galvanized a lot of young people. But what I was faced with is this, is because Texas is usually a Republican state. The question that came to me was, why should I vote if we're never going to be a Democratic state? And so I want y'all to address that, if you
Great
will.
question,
It
'cause
really is.
I think
that's
it's a
great
wonderful question, but let me just start off simply by saying that the state of Texas has the most black people in the United States. And so if all registered
Vote.
African Americans went to the polls and vote, now I'm not talking about all the black people, I'm talking about just those that are registered, then this state will no longer be a Republican state.
Correct.
It will be a blue state.
Correct.
So it's encouraging everybody to get to the polls,
Yeah.
to vote, and understanding that their vote does matter is important. Whether they're young or old, skinny,
Very
black,
important.
it doesn't matter, you know, they need to
Can
get to the
I-
poll.
But we need to also add just how important it is to vote locally.
Yes,
Because, these district lines are drawn
Yeah.
at a state level.
Yes.
And so if you have a bunch of red districts dictating,
Correct.
how we're going to vote and where we're going to vote, we need to replace them with Democrats. So we need to have more candidates that are going to
Yes.
run so that we could take back the state,
mean,
county by
the
county or district by
the
district.
last Democratic statewide position that was held was Ann Richards as governor of Texas. And that's been to the 90s. And
Yeah,
so-
but so it can happen.
And so it has happened, and so it's just a matter
Houston has changed over.
of everyone
City of
getting to
Houston.
Really?
to the ballots
Suburbs.
and voting, not just for president, not just for governor,
All
but
the way
for
down.
everything
Every-
down
Yeah.
ballot, because every
Judges,
position
everything.
matters.
Yes.
Yes.
Very true.
I'm gonna say one thing before I get into Vicky, because she has a question that's kind of off totally in a different direction. That one of the things we're gonna start doing with this Trending Tuesdays, which is the second and fourth, we have Jeffery Child's vote.
All right.
We will have literally, you can come in, you can register to vote here.
Yay.
That's
We know
great.
that this is, like you said, this is the election
Yeah, it is.
of our lifetime.
Yeah.
So that's something I just want people to know that's present. And then Vicky has a final question.
President Obama. But my father, he's 90 years old. He bought property in the 1950s.
Wow.
He's a military veteran. He had 7 kids. So much disinformation was given to him that I didn't know that he could use his GI Bill, or he didn't know about all the benefits that
Wow.
he could use.
As a veteran.
So now he's in a position where he bought this property and he's 90 years old, but at some point, and he's self-employed, small business,
Yeah.
at some point, he got a reverse mortgage loan.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he has rental property and he has a reverse mortgage loan, and then he
Yes.
has, that generational wealth was not passed down, so
Yeah.
whereas a kid can come along easily and purchase
Correct.
it and keep it in the family, now it's a struggle as
To,
Yes.
what
what we're gonna do with that, how he's gonna have his assets, and then the storms have hit, the windstorm, the
Yes.
barrel. So it destroyed one of his properties and damaged his home. And
Yeah.
he's in a position where he has no help right now, and we're like struggling to.
To try to keep the property.
maintain. So
Yeah.
what about these reverse mortgage loans and predatory lending?
Yes. I was just on a call earlier today about predatory lending and how it preys on our community. The radio ads on our radio stations, the mailers that come to our homes, the people that knock on our door, the cold calls that we get prey on our community. My grandmother did a reverse mortgage and no one knew about it. She didn't tell anybody in the family. She just did it, and after she passed away, there's letters coming and everybody's trying to figure out, I thought this house was paid off. So at least that's step one. At least you understand what he's done with the reverse mortgage. It's not the end of the world in some cases because values have appreciated a lot over the past 3 to 5 years. So it's important to not just to understand what the value of the home is, and we can definitely help you with that, to know what the asset is. Because a lot of times families just, when they figure out that it's a reverse mortgage, they say, oh, well, we're just giving it back to the bank. Well, wait a minute. Values have increased 20, 30, 40% over the past 5 years. You may not just want to give it back to the bank. So let's look at it case by case, but it's so important to talk to your parents and your grandparents and have these financial conversations, because a lot of times the elderly will get into a reverse mortgage because it's marketed to them and they don't understand all the ramifications of it. So it's really important to start having those conversations so they can be educated.
I was going to just say, this is a very, very sensitive topic to me.
Yeah.
It's something I care deeply about. Matter of fact, this week, I'm editor of the Forward Times newspaper, and I wrote a lead article this week called Scamming Our Seniors, where there was, I don't know if you heard, it was a 92-year-old man who had his property, a general warranty deed signed by a guy that wasn't even someone he knew. He told him that he needed repairs done on his home and things of that nature, and it was up to $30,000, but his family didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
He had just moved into a living facility. But there's so many of these things that happen that go on.
Yes.
But let me just say this.
Yes, they do.
I was a banker for 11 years. I was vice president of small business banking for Washington Mutual. But before that, I managed our our mortgage banking commercial online. And telephone banking is what I meant to say. And I was vehemently against reverse mortgages when they were coming down the pipe, and I knew they were coming down the pipe, not because I don't believe it is a good tool, because I do believe it is a good tool.
In certain circumstances.
It's a good tool because it allows you to take advantage of the equity in your home while you're still living to take care of your needs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are on fixed
Fixed
income
income.
or below
Yeah.
and are
Can't
unable
manage
to
it.
do so.
Yeah.
So with the right information
Correct.
and understanding, a reverse mortgage can be a great asset, a great tool for you.
Correct.
However, a lot of people are targeted.
Yeah.
They don't understand, they
Correct.
don't know, so they sign up for these reverse mortgages, and before you know it, and like Courtney mentioned, many times family members are unaware because they're not communicating and talking. They move away from Big Mama's house or
Yeah.
Papa's house, and they just let them stay there and come visit them on Sundays maybe, and stuff like that, but they don't know what's going on with the day-to-day of their finances and their situation. And so before you know it, just like this family of this 92-year-old that I was just
Yeah.
telling you about, and just like her family with grandma, they had no idea.
Yep.
And clearly, I guess you all were in a position to deal with the reverse mortgage, whereas some families
Not in a position.
are not,
Yep.
which it seems like what you're saying, or at least you're challenged to try to address the situation. It's unfortunate. Education and information is the key, but getting with someone that can help to try to see if there are some remedies for the situation, because the money has been dispersed. So the lien has been,
The lead is
done. So,
Correct.
so it's owed, and it's a proper lien. It's not something illegal that was done.
Yeah,
So
it is
now,
what it is, yeah,
now you have to figure out a way as a family
to manage.
to get past it and get through it and not lose your father's property.
Yeah.
Can we say, trendingtuesdays.com, can we say to the audience or for people with questions that they just send those questions and we will do the best we can to respond
Absolutely.
with our guests who are experts in those areas? I think
Absolutely.
that's all we can do.
Absolutely.
You know,
Well, I just
before-
want to, as we close,
Yeah, exactly.
Come on,
as I close,
Come on, Pastor.
as I close, Pastor, you have an offering plate for me, Pastor? I just want to thank you all for tuning in to Trending Tuesdays. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Courtney Johnson-Rose and Laurie Vignaud. Let's give them a round of applause again.
Thank you.
And I want to get a drum roll so I can give you these results. Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right, so this went to a runoff.
No,
You're
they are
This went to a runoff.
They are tied.
It went to a runoff.
But
At the end of the first round, Amanda Edwards had 34 votes. Sylvester Turner had 35 votes. Letitia Plummer had 6 votes.
I didn't know Plummer was
And
Yeah.
former State Representative Jarvis Johnson encouraged all of his supporters to support Amanda. So after the runoff, all of the individuals got an opportunity to speak that were in the top 2 vote getters. And the final results were 37 votes to 41 votes with 2 abstentions. Sylvester Turner is going to be the representative on the Democratic ticket.
congratulations.
Wow.
That was close.
Yeah, it was very close.
That was
It was very
close.
close. So
Wow.
that is who the precinct chairs of the 18th Congressional District chose this evening. And so next is the November the 5th election. So I want to encourage all of you all and vote. Vote twice if you can, as long as it's not illegal and you don't go to jail. I'm
But
just
vote.
teasing.
But
I'm
vote.
just- no, please,
No matter what you
please,
do,
please go
vote.
vote.
Yeah.
And God bless you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was close. Great job, Jeff.
That was something else.
I know. Y'all thought I was going to say something different.
You know what?
Goes out to Amanda.
I do too. She's been working on this for years. To be so close.
She need to get out in the community more. She need to deal with the people. People don't.